Hello and welcome to ET Studios, powered by ET Auto. We are here at Yashobhumi, the venue for the component show, which is part of Bharat Mobility Global Expo 2025. And I have with me Rajesh Premchandran, Chief of Sales and Marketing at Bearings Major, NBC Bearings. Rajesh, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleasure being here.
Tell us, bearings, a very key component of vehicle, be it ICE or EV. But in the EV side, it's just not the same bearing.
Absolutely.
So, what are the new technology developments that are taking place in terms of trends that is there in which you are trying to incorporate in your bearings as well?
Yeah, I think the first thing that EV manufacturers need to understand is that EV manufacturers are looking for any amount of savings that can come out of the weight of the vehicle, right? So what we have tried to do on the bearings is integrate the sensors into the bearings. And now you can do various things. For now, it is looking at the amount of distance that the vehicle run, and then that information is going back. And instead of having a separate component that you need to put it, we now integrated that into the bearings itself, and from there you can take on. So I think it's limitless what the EV manufacturers need. But what we are doing is, you just add on to it. You can add an encoder. You can do what is required. And there are also certain sensors which can also ensure the motor efficiency in addition to the ones that you're using on a vehicle. You can use it for efficiencies of the motors.
So will it also help in, let's say, preventive maintenance, for example?
Absolutely. I mean, that is what is needed. That will definitely, like for example, if there is a feeling that the bearings are, is going to fail, there can be an indicator to the vehicles. And I think today what we are seeing is we could also use those kinds of technologies even in cars and other things, because with more and more information coming, people wanting to know that, okay, this thing is going to fail, please have a look at it, that early warning signs can start to come in, and the service station can, the driver knows that this has to be fixed.
So in a way,
it's limitless. Yeah.
The otherwise rudimentary ball bearing is becoming smart as well.
Absolutely, it's becoming smart. If it fails, the biggest problem is if it fails, the whole vehicle stalls. You'll have to take it on the side. But any early warning signs which has to be developed, of course, we should sit with the OEs and develop it. That information can go back into.
And the other part is friction, because while the smoothest of bearings for an ICE vehicle may not be the smoothest of bearing for an EV, right?
Right, that is correct. I mean, one, of course, more than the friction, you need a bit of friction for the bearings to run. Right? That's minimum needed. I think
the noise from the friction, I meant.
Noise from the friction, yeah, that is one. I think the other thing that is there is speeds have also increased. Because of the need for higher speed motors, etc. So speeds have increased, so that's increased. But I think what's interesting, maybe it's a non-EV discussion, but what is the other thing that's interesting is that you can save also a certain amount from the bearing in terms of lower friction bearings. What we already created is there's a certain amount of friction, but what happens to friction? It generates heat and it slows, fuel efficiency is higher. So because you don't need that extra torque to be able to run. But now with a low friction bearing, to that extent you do it, it will save a certain amount of fuel, but the carbon footprint over the life of the bearing is so high. So there's a benefit for, when you're declaring, like OEMs can declare that certain carbon footprint can there, bearings can also contribute in that. And that's another thing which you also displayed here.
Since you are responsible for sales as well, so tell us at what rate, what's the rate of growth that you are witnessing in your organization for the EV part of EV application bearings?
See, I think one change is that what we've been supplying in the last 1 or 2 years have been to new players, whether it is Ola Electric, Altigreen, these kinds of things. But the big game changer is coming from the big guys, whether it's Bajaj, Honda.
TVS.
That's where the volumes, the TVS are. And we are starting to see that they have started to get very interested in this space, right? And that is really going to drive it. We have everything ready. Luckily, we've been working with most of them. We have developed the technologies, and that will go into the scooters. I think bikes are still going to be taking a while before they go EV, but because I think the problem in the bikes is that you don't have a space to keep the batteries and other things. Packaging challenges, etc. So I think scooters are going much more faster. So when they get into the EV scooter game, then we are in it for.
And at NBC, are you also kind of expanding in terms of overseas markets?
I think that's the biggest change for us. I think the last 2 years, what we are seeing, most OEM manufacturers globally want to come to India. And they're doing it for 2 reasons. One, protect their supply chain. I think their dependence on 1 or 2 players have been so high that I think COVID forced them to get new players. So that started to happen, as a result of which we are seeing global players wanting us to set up more major plants, designs, and we're getting into all these things. So exports is really the big boost, and I see that happening. And I think off late we are seeing distributors saying that we don't want to take a risk with China. Why don't we start seeing? So I think you're starting to see these little trickles, but I think it's really, we were expecting much more, and that's what we're seeing, more and more customers.
What's the demand scenario currently in from your OEM customers? Because some segments are seeing a little bit of cooling off.
I think CV has been down. I think Q3 was tough for us. Q4, some green shoots of increase. Now I see that it's still, maybe next year also will be as slow as this. Two-wheelers really have taken off. They've done very well. Cars have started to take, tractors are starting to move up. CV seems to be a little bit of a damp now.
In all this, this year, what kind of top line are you?
I think it will be I would say a low, a low double digit, I would say, if we can do. Because I think what has been beneficial, bearings are supplied to so many. Rail is doing quite well for us, so that's good. Industrials are not so bad. Automotive and exports have been the real slowdown.
So are you kind of focusing on non-automotive sector
as
a part of your de-risking strategy?
Absolutely. Right? Today we are number one in automotive bearings, just pure bearings play. We're number one in rail. Industrials, we have a low share. We want to increase that share, and think that's where the focus is. And exports. These are two focus areas for us.
Okay. On that note, Rajesh, thanks for sparing your time and having this conversation.
Thank you very much for having me here.
There you heard Rajesh Premchandran, Chief of Sales and Marketing at Bearings Major, NBC Bearings, talking about the trends, technology trends for bearings, specifically for EV application, and also the organization's strategy in terms of de-risking strategy by focusing more on, also on non-automotive sectors, and of course the possibility or the potential to expand overseas. So on that note, thanks for watching this interview.